ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon. How are you all? Welcome. It's the Roundtable. Happy Thursday, everybody. This is the 43rd week that we have spent together here at the Roundtable. Thank you all for being here. Happy Thursday to you all. Happy Thursday, Abby. You know, this is the first time in 43 weeks that I have not done a pre-show on Instagram. We had a wild little crazy family day, so I hope you're all hanging in there. We're trying to hang in there today as well. So yeah, I just needed a moment today. But I'm so excited to be here with you today because we have a really great show. We have a really wonderful actress and a history maker. Hey, hi Janelle, how you doing? Looking forward to seeing you. Hi Mom, how are you? What a day. Right. So yay, it's Roundtable Day. I love you too. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to see so many of you that will be here with me on this coming Saturday. It is finally here. We've been talking about it forever. Rewind is here. Rewind is here this Saturday, and this is my shameless plug before we even got to shameless plug. But I'm looking forward to when I see people like Janelle and Christine and etc. I'm so excited to be with you all. So join me. Be here with me on Saturday live on virtually or in person. You can come to New York City and see me. Go to robertbannon.com. Hi, Christine. Looking forward to seeing you. Christine's birthday is coming up on Monday. I'm happy that Abby is hanging in there longer than the UK can hold the Prime Minister. I love a good UK topical current event. That's a fun joke for sure. Thanks all of you for being here, and thanks for your love this week. I so appreciate it. Let's get started, shall we? Let's get down to business and talk about my week in review. So yeah, I saw a lot of shows this past weekend. I had a really great time. We started things off last Friday. I got to see our friends to the show, Wendell Pierce and Delaney Williams, starring in Death of a Salesman. This show is freaking off the chart amazing. Like, there's amazing, and then there's amazing. There's amazing, and then there's amazing. Delaney Williams better clear his mantle. He will win every award this June for Broadway. He is brilliant. Brilliant. And if you are in New York City and you have 3 hours to kill, definitely check out Death of a Salesman. It was fantastic. I saw Delaney and Wendell after the show, and Wendell was like, "You're Rob Bannon." I'm like, "Bannon. Close. Good enough." Such an honor to know him and to be able to see him in that show is phenomenal. And then on Saturday, I took the little ones to see Sesame Street. Yeah, Sam and Vanessa. We loved it. Look how cute this show is. Look at them. They're like the real people. They're puppets. Elmo and Abby, and we, after the show, got to meet the Honkers. Look at them. How cute. I loved it so much. I'm a huge Sesame Street Muppet fanatic, so it was really fun to be able to see that show. You can see that show. It's running through the end of November at Theater Row off Broadway. It's pretty fantastic, and you will really enjoy it. They are really cute. They're so cute. Abby, I'm hoping to buy the virtual ticket when I get paid tomorrow. I hear that. So I'll be there in virtual spirit. Well, we will shout you out and say hello to everyone watching virtually. If you're from around the country, you can go and get a virtual ticket. It's like $19 or $15 or something like that. So come join us virtually. And we will miss you, Abby, and we hope that one day you'll be here. Maybe we'll be in London. Who knows what's going to happen? Abby saw 6 for the first time, and it blew her away. It's so good, isn't it? You're going to have to go back in the archives and find our chats with the writers of 6, Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss, on Quarantine Cabaret and Cocktails. And then we had Toby on this show, one of our first weeks. So brilliant. So good. It's such a great time. If you're in New York City, definitely go see 6. So good. Yeah. And then on Sunday, I celebrated my birthday with my mother because my brother is going on his honeymoon to Bora Bora. So he won't be here for my birthday. So we had an early birthday brunch on Sunday. And then after that on Sunday, which was always good to see my family, a movie I produced called Catalina, which was written and conceived by my friend Samuel Di Giovanni, that's him right there, and Ron Pete, who's a brilliant actor who's on the law show that's on Netflix, Law Practice Partners, whatever. And also he was in Daddy, which was with Adam Cummings. He stars in it, and I got to go to that in the opening, and we had the party, and I got to see Ron and Sam. And then after that, because it wasn't enough to just see my family and see the movie premiere. I went and saw Melissa Etheridge. Um, Woo! Amazing. My window, a journey through life. Thank you to Vivacity. Thank you for the tickets. And would you like to see a little bit of Melissa? I snuck a little video for you, just for you, exclusively on the Roundtable. She's there for 2 more weeks. It is one of the most magical experiences I have ever seen. Ever, ever. Melissa Etheridge. Brilliant. Take a peek at this little sneak I took for you.
Go on and hold out till the scream is gone. Go on, leave her when she tells you nothing's wrong. I'm the only one who walked across the fire for you. I'm the only one who cried my desire for you.
So amazing. Just her on stage, 3 hours. It's not a concert. It is her life story with music. It's something you got to see if you're in New York City. It's highly, highly recommend. Very exciting. Yeah, it was a busy weekend, but it was a lot of fun. I was exhausted all week. I'm exhausted. We're the 2 days from Scorpio season. My show starts October 22nd. My show in New York City is October 22nd, and it's Scorpio season October 22nd, which is on purpose, kind of, you know. She is playing right now. Where is she playing? She is playing at I should know this. Hold on. Melissa Etheridge is playing. I'm going to tell you. I'm not prepared. She Oh my gosh. We're a hot mess express. She's playing New World Stages. It's at New World Stages right now in the middle of New York City. I just saw a bunch of shows there. So New World Stages, go to New World Stages and definitely see it. Abby saw 6 and was fabulous. Saw it in April, beginning of Scorpio season on her birthday, October 24th. Interesting facts. Wow. Fascinating. Yes, Jenny, I will see you tomorrow. Finally, I will be there. I don't know what I'm doing. We have a PD day tomorrow for all the teachers. We're very scattered here today, but we're hanging in there. And then I'm looking forward to seeing you. And then we rehearsed yesterday, Tuesday. We rehearsed Tuesday for the show. Well, while we're talking about the show, we might as well shamelessly plug, shall we? So here is our shameless plug. Let's do it. 'Cause I'm shameless. Yes, it's a really exciting week. We have a great show for you. We ran the show through. We've worked on it on Monday and Tuesday. I can't wait to sound check it and work on it again on Saturday. If you want to watch it virtually, you can go to robertbannon.com, click the link. If you want to join us in person, we have some famous people coming. We have some fun people coming. We have my friends and some of my roundtablers coming. Go to robertbannon.com. See me Saturday night. It's at 7 p.m. At the Green Room 42 with my band. If you see me do shows in New Jersey, you haven't seen a show yet until you've seen a full New York experience. No guests, no BS, just me and my story called Rewind, and I'm excited to show it for you. And there's more coming next year, so I'll give you more info. And if you're in LA, we can't leave you hanging. LA, I've got you covered. We're not just leaving you hanging. I can come see you in LA. You can come see me in LA too. My friends that are in Los Angeles, we have a whole different show for you. A special fun show that Matt Gould is doing. Matt Gould is, Witness Uganda, Lampika, television star, film star, amazing songwriter. Matt Gould will be there. Jane Monhead, Grammy nominated jazz vocalist sensation, and the star of Wicked and Frozen on Disneyland, Dominique Patana, are all joining me on November 10th. I'm flying out on the 9th, and we're going to have a party on the 10th. So if you're in LA, there's a virtual ticket thanks to Janelle. That is because she realized that they didn't put that up yet, and we got that situated and is getting fixed as we speak. So we'll be streaming in LA. It will be streaming. And yes, a lot of roundtablers are Scorpios. How funny is that? So yes, Saturday, 7 o'clock, Green Room 42. Christine will be there. Janelle will be there. Mike Melfa, hey, will be there. Mike Melfa will be there as well. Come. Looking forward to it. All right, so that's the show. We also, while we're plugging things, tickets have been selling. Miles Frost posted about this yesterday. He said, "Don't meet him, beat him, beat it." He made a joke about Michael Jackson. That's right. More information. Go to BroadwayLectureSeries.com, November 28th at 7 o'clock, only in person. They will not let us live stream it. It's going to be an in-person only. Come be in person on the 28th at Montclair State University. Have an in-depth conversation. It's like the Roundtable, but in person with a meet and greet after. You can get your tickets. It's November 28th, and meet and greet tickets are selling. They're selling. So get your tickets. Come join me, Miles Frost, Tony-winning superstar of MJ, will be with us live and in person. I'm excited to start a new program. We'll see how it goes. Right? You never know. You never know. I don't have a hey friend. Hey, today I did. You know who I did talk to today? Okay, I'll give you some tea.
I'll be there for you. How you doing?
Well, here. If you take a peek at this, I have, because I didn't plan this, to talk to you. This is my friend. Do you know Rachel Yucatel? Rachel Yucatel is, Google her. Rachel Yucatel coming to the show on Saturday. I'm sure that will be a whole story in of itself. So look her up. Super sweet, super lover, super nice. Had a great phone call conversation with her. Mike was with me when we met Wendell and Delaney. They were lovely. The son, Mike, the son, not the one from Space Jam, not the son that was yes, and thank you. It was cute. It was cute that he reposted it. Don't meet him, beat it. Yes, you know what I'm saying. Mike, the son that gets ignored, the one that gets ignored from the son that is the winner. Listen, it's a struggle today. Just bear with me. Thank you all. We've had a long day in our family. So the son who is ignored, he will be on the show in the coming weeks. And I just did an interview last night with a guy by the name of Ronald Gutman. Ronald Gutman has been in a bunch of Hunt for Red October, etc. He will be here as well. Yes, happy. Thank you. Mike given the clues about who Rachel Yucatel is. That's a tiger, and that's Woods. I hope you hey friend, hey me on Saturday. I hope you yell it. I hope you yell it from the crowd, Christine. Hi, Edelyn. Edelyn will be at the show. She's a student of mine from years ago, and she will be at the show on Saturday. Looking forward. Clap loud. Clap loud. Then you'll ignore the fact that I don't know the lyrics. So Rachel Yucatel called me, and we had a good conversation, and we'll have a lot of friends that will be there on Saturday. People are coming. Tickets are picking up. Whatever. I don't have any pressure. There's bigger things in life, and life always has a way of surprising you and showing you that life's precious, and we're just going to go and enjoy each other's company and our time, right? I had a lot of fun. This is definitely the most fun show that I have ever done. I promise you that. You know who else is really fun? L. Morgan Lee. L. Morgan Lee is a Tony-winning superstar, Tony-nominated superstar of Strange Loop, the Tony-winning, thank you, I wrote that down right, and I said it wrong, the Tony-winning play, A Strange Loop. She's the first trans actress to ever be nominated for a Tony Award, which is pretty freaking special. We had a really serious, long conversation where she explains her transition into show business and transition into being a trans actress and being in roles and how she turns roles down and how she acts and is. And I make mistakes. We correct them. We have open and honest conversation. It's something that I was really honored, and it was very special. She would have been here live. She would have been here live, but she's on stage right now. It's Broadway, and they're on at 7 o'clock. But I had to bring you this really inspiring, beautiful person. So if you don't mind, if you have nothing to do, you want to hang out with me and take a peek at when we chatted. I have an exclusive special sit down with one of the most amazing performers that I've seen on stages ever. I remember going and seeing Strange Loop, not knowing anything about it, and then seeing its rise and journey straight to winning Best Musical. And the first of many. She is such a star. She is so wonderful, and she is the star, one of the stars, and one of the thought number one of the Tony-winning Strange Loop. Elle Morgan. Listen, if you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? It's definitely the art that I want to see. Original, amazing, fun, great art. She's going to talk all about the first. She's going to talk about growing up. She's going to talk about learning, her love of musical theater, and where she sees it going. We're going to have a good chat. Elle Morgan Lee is here. I had the pleasure of seeing a show off Broadway a few years ago called Strange Loop, and it blew me away because I had never seen this story represented in the way that it was. And over the past few years, we've had some really great conversations about how art should be diverse and inclusive and represent the world that we live in. One of the standouts of any show that I have seen on a stage is our next guest. She is absolutely dynamite. She is as beautiful inside and out and has such a powerful voice for so many important issues that are so pressing in our time. This is Tony nominee Elle Morgan Lee is here.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It is so true. And I'm so honored to talk to you because you and the work that you do is something that has helped. My partner comes from Oakland, California. Father was a pastor. I saw Strange Loop originally off Broadway. Don't mind my unprofessional dog upstairs. And he saw the show on Broadway with me and said, "This is my story that I've never seen before." What amazing storytelling and what a journey you all have been on.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it has certainly been a journey with layers and layers and layers of complexity inside of that journey. But to hear people say that this is their story is always sort of a reminder of why we do what we do.
Yeah, and you guys, you all do it so well. That's that ensemble is a fun time. What a fun time you all are. Okay, so I have to ask you. So growing up, you're from Maryland. Is that where you're originally from?
Maryland, yeah.
And did you start wanting to be a performer like as early as nursery school?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't know that it was like wanting to be a performer so much as sort of teachers and people around me realizing that I was excited to play, basically. Yeah, so like to me, it was just sort of second nature. Like I always, like they threw me in. I mean, when I was in nursery school, there was like a talent show situation. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was like a Thanksgiving sort of pageantry situation. And then there was like a little like talent show at the end of it. And they threw me in like makeup and hair and were like, "You're going to do Karma Chameleon." And I knew the song and grabbed like a wooden block as a microphone and like went out there. I mean, I was probably 4.
If it's in you, it's in you. it's it. And then from that, did you start to fall in love? Was it originally musicals? I know that you studied musical theater eventually in Philly. Was it musicals in particular that were you a kid that wanted to be in the school play and was that how you grew up?
It's interesting. I definitely watched lots of the old like MGM musicals, lots of like Judy Garland moments. I think the dream was always to be on TV. So this is a dream that I have yet to actually get to fulfill. But yeah, the dream was always to be on TV. So like the idea of musicals was something that I think I never actually saw it as like a realistic situations because it was not realistic that people would, make a living on just bursting into song randomly in the middle of it. Like that just did not ever seem like it was actually a job to people. So the idea of dreaming of doing that was sort of foreign to me until I got a little older. But the idea of being on TV was certainly a thing. Like I could easily be on one of these TV shows and at that point in time, there were so many television shows with, representation of various colors and that kind of thing. So, I grew up always sort of seeing versions of sort of my family on screen, not necessarily seeing myself fully, but seeing like versions of families that I knew and loved.
Yes, I totally understand that. And then when you graduate school and you have a degree in musical theater,
Mm-hmm.
what was those years like? And so many people, I was just speaking to a student today of mine who's applying for an arts high school and is trying to find a monologue that's age appropriate. And she's 14 years old. And we're trying to go, and the grind and the hustle. I know now it's easy to see Tony nominee L. Morgan Lee and all of the amazing things you do and see you on, television shows, performing and etc. What is it like? What were those years like? Those like hungry grind years? What was it like once you graduated?
Oh God, I think I was a little privileged.
Okay.
Because for me, I graduated from school in like May, June, and then I started a contract in August. So I moved to New York. I had like $50 in my pocket. I was smiling and just happy to be here. I worked at the Gap for a month and a half. And then I left town to do a tour. And that was my first equity contract, which I actually I was looking through some things and like just found a binder. And I was like, wait, what's in this? And opened it. And it was like, this was my first job in the city in 2002. Fall of 2002 was my first job in the city / first equity contract. So for me, the like grind itself was not right away. I got to the city and was able to work a bunch, and then I was working out of town. I was doing a lot of touring, which is what was happening. I did a tour of this. I did like an East Coast kind of a tour that was a children's theater tour. Then I did an international tour, so I went to Europe for like 6-7 months. Then I came back and did another sort of in-city tour situation that also had a beat of the contract that was off Broadway for like 2 months. And so I did that stuff. The grind actually started when I made the decision to stay put. When I was like, I don't want to run around touring everywhere because all of my things are in storage units. And like, I feel like I have no home, and I'm very much a Cancer and I need to have like a home base. So I was like, I can't tour. I need to stay in one place for a moment. And I want to be able to see what it feels like to just live in New York City. And that's when the grind started. that's when it was like, oh God, get up in the crack of dawn and go sit in an audition line. And I did a little bit of that in college, coming up to New York to audition for things. But I think I was sort of just testing the waters a lot, and like in many cases playing with fire. Because I got a couple like situations that were like down to the wire, and I was like, wait, but I'm still in school. I actually don't want to do this. I was just trying to see what the audition experience was like. Like, please don't cast me actually, because I just wanted to see what it felt like to audition in New York City.
I'm coming for her now, because you mean you didn't have to go perform The Music Man in a barn to get your equity card like me? I almost get shut down because they modernized it, and it was.
I mean, but the thing is, there are elements. I think that there's something. I will say there are moments when I feel like that was something I missed out on in the progression of things. But because the thing is, those stories are like, those are things you have stories for the rest of your life. My sort of situation into my equity card was like almost immediate. So like I only knew, but I started with like a TYA contract. So like it wasn't like I started on Broadway. Like Broadway didn't come till 20 years later. So but it's like, I started with a contract that was very modest and sort of helped me to understand that like theater can be scrappy and you can all throw it together and figure things out in a similar way. I mean, different situation, of course, but in a similar way. I do think that there are some comparisons, though, to people being in a barn somewhere and people sort of loading their set and costumes into a cafetorium of a school. I do think like neither of these things is particularly glamorous, and but there are sort of entertaining elements where the cast then really unites.
Yes, I've heard all of the stories about those great little van and carrier set in the school. That's
I
That's
mean, I never thought I would be an adult, sort of really getting excited about that, 7 a.m. school breakfast
yeah.
situation.
That's
But lo and behold, I could not wait to see the schools we got to where they were like, here's your chocolate milk and here's your, sensible Danish.
it's still like that. It's still like that today. They have bagels now that the cream cheese is inside. It's like a big school.
Oh, school.
How did the Danish girl in the UK come about, and how was that experience for you?
That was a pandemic baby. So I was, in my apartment like everybody else during the shutdown. And I got a message in my direct messages on Instagram from Alex Parker, who is a composer and does a lot of, he's a composer. He also does a lot of like MDing in London. And so he sent me a message saying, I got your name from someone, did not tell me who. And am interested in and wanted to check with you to see if you might be interested in singing this song that I've written. And I'm going to, there's no period after the L. There's a song that I wrote that I want to see if you might be interested in singing. I'm happy to send it to you to see if you're interested. Just boom. And so I was like, well, sure. I mean, we're sitting at home. I thought this idea that he was going to do like record it at home, and then they would put like an orchestra behind it, and like everybody in their orchestra parts would record their things at home. And I was like, this is really cool and kind of artistic. And so I was like, well, let me hear the song. I'd love to hear it. He sent me the song. I just about did cartwheels in my living room because I was like, oh my God, this style-wise is very like, it's giving me like Light in the Piazza, and I am all for it. And I almost have never been asked to sing anything that was really in that particular style, which is like one of the big things that I want to be doing. I'm like definitely excited about the idea of like legitimate musical theater in terms of like style of singing. And so I was like, oh my God, Light in the Piazza, like, yes, sign me up. And so I was like, I'll do it. I'm so excited. And so I sang through it, did the song, and then like a week or so passed, and he messaged me. And of course, at that point, I knew that it was from this piece, The Danish Girl, that he had been writing. And he was like, we are interested, my partner and my writing partner and I, Katie Lamb, are interested in chatting with you about being Lily. And I was like, well, you're in London and I'm in New York. How would that even work? But at that point, nobody was anywhere because we were all just digital. And so we started having some conversations, and then I found out that the writer of the novel, David, came and saw a Strange Loop at Playwrights in 2019. And like, as he was leaving the theater, he tells the story now, as he was leaving the theater, he texted them and said, I think I found Lily. And so they like came to me, and like, I loved the music and I really liked talking to the team, and we've started, developing. And the thing that's cool about it is that they had sort of had a draft of the show that they put together, like a draft of like the first like 20 minutes or so of the show that they sort of worked through a bit and kind of played with. And they just kind of were like, we're going to scrap a lot of that, and we're kind of going to start from scratch. And we're going to, they had some advisors and some consultants that they'd already been speaking with, a group of trans people in the UK who they'd already been like chatting with this whole topic about. Like, so it was really lovely, the way the work was already being done, because neither of these two writers are trans people. And so they thought that in order to tell this story and to do it the right way, that they wanted to be able to make sure that the voice in the piece is trans-centered. And so they made sure that there was a room full of trans folks chit-chatting about this thing on Zoom, and sort of just having like just open conversations about Lily and about our individual journeys, and kind of what, a journey like Lily's might have looked like, how like she might have identified. There were so many things when you read the book, and then you go back and look through the actual story. There's so many things that like in the film we all know, You know, they show a very, very fast sort of progression of things. What people don't know is that Lily lived for a good 20 years of her life just like publicly as Lily. There was no medical transition. She was a socialite. She was an artist. She was living her life like publicly and in social circles in her truth. And then she started to medically transition. And so people didn't, there was no way of talking about that really in the film because it would have been a little advanced, I think, for a cis person to take on without sort of having that conversation happening. But David, who wrote the novel, is so beautiful, number one. And he's like, I think he's really committed to supporting Lily's voice being put out to a new generation and Lily's voice being put out and being kept alive in some ways. And it's really beautiful. Like we finally got to meet at the beginning of this year, actually. And afterwards, like you could tell he respects her so much. And I think that's something that's like so beautiful. It's not just simply this human seemed interesting to write a story about. There was a true respect for her and for her journey. And I think that this team is doing a really beautiful job of trying to honor that as much as they can. So the project is still in development. It's still being worked on. I've been to London once with it, twice. I was in London for another reason, but ended up getting to chat with him about it while I was there. But yeah, stay tuned. Oh.
I'm gonna get nervous talking to you, and I'm gonna be a hot mess. No. It's really exciting. It's really, really an exciting project to be on the horizon to look out for.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. Like I keep saying this to folks, it's like this project is the Danish Girl project is a perfect example of how work can be done when there are trans narratives, in the piece, and how important it is to have trans people there so that you are not led astray. So that people because I think there's a lot of interest right now in having more trans people and just more visibility in general.
Sure.
But it's so often told through the lens of people who are not trans. Right. And so it's like, if that is going to be a major theme in your piece, you want to have representation in the room so that you know that you are telling the story in a way that is truly affirming and uplifting that particular voice. There is no single trans voice. There is no one version of what it means to be trans. There are so many different versions of what that looks like. But I think it is rather difficult for a team who is all cis to tell that story without there being anyone there to make sure that like the bones are being built in the right way.
Well, that leads me to, if I may, a question. I've had the extreme pleasure. I had Alexandra Billings, I had Peppermint, I had Angelica Ross, some of your Broadway family that have been on the show with me and chatted about this. For you and your experience as in your lifestyle, what have you faced from the business, and how hard has it been to break through this wall as L. Morgan Lee and going through this entertainment business? We've learned so much over the past few years about what it's like in the homophobia and racism and transphobia and all of the things that are in business in general, specifically show business, specifically Broadway. What is your experience about how it reared its head towards you, and how did you overcome it?
I think one of the biggest things so there's twofold. There's the one side of it where I have to acknowledge that in some spaces, in particular in spaces that are musical theater based, the fact that I am able to sing repertoire in keys that society would deem feminine or female, quote unquote, the fact that I'm able to sing that repertoire is in many ways a privilege, because it doesn't ask for cis people to sort of change their idea of what voices can sound like. So like if I want to play Audrey in Little Shop, you don't have to change keys. If I want to, jump into, Wicked, which I don't, but if I wanted to jump into Wicked, I could sing Alphaba. I would rather sing Glinda, but I don't have the high A's, or I don't have the high C or the E that I would want to be able to do if you're going to do the show. It's like I don't have the spin in the places that I'd want to hear that spin. So. But in that case, many cis women also don't have those notes or that spin. So I think the challenges that I feel like I have faced, because the truth is we also don't know everything. We know what we think we are fighting against. We know what we are used to fight against in certain spaces, but we never know the actual sort of ins and outs of what's happening in the minds of people behind a table unless we're getting a chance to hear what those people think directly. And so I think what my feelings are that I have faced strongly is the simplest of understanding that if I'm going for a role that is written for a woman, that I'm in the right space. Simple. For me, for my journey, for how I identify, for who I am, my playing a role does not inherently make her a trans woman. I think that she can be a trans woman, and if your creative team if your creative team has a vision that is worth looking into and doing that work to see what kind of specificity can bring and how beautiful that nuance could be to this script, amazing. But if your team does not have that, then I'd ask that you don't try to bring it and allow me to be who I am in this space. I can bring being a trans woman to the space without me having to say it out loud or wear a banner or be, the subject of the marketing campaign. It could simply be, there's an actress, her name is Elle Morgan Lee, and she's playing, Cindy in this piece. And so I feel like that's one of the things that I sort of face and that many of us face is just simply being understood to just be a woman, and that's okay. And there are many trans people who might feel otherwise and who might be like, if I play a role, she's trans and that's what it is. Amazing. But I think to assume that is the case for everyone is going to be a pitfall. And to assume that you understand the needs of each person in this whatever marginalized group is an assumption that might actually not be in your best interest. So I think one of the things, that's probably one of the biggest things I feel like I face is just simply being understood. Like if there are roles that I want to play, look, I want to play Dot in Sunny Park with George. Like if I'm playing her, she is not suddenly a trans woman. Now, again, if the director wants to sort of, let's dig in and see kind of what that looks like if she is, I'm all game to go on that ride. But I don't think we need to somehow change the material or the repertoire or the lens of the whole piece in order to accommodate a woman playing a woman. And I think that's another, I guess that would sort of directly tie in with something I've noticed is the subject of queerness. I think in some ways being diminished to meaning sort of something very simple when the word itself is very vast. I will use Sunny Park with George as an example. If I am being looked at for Dot in Sunny Park with George, the piece does not need to suddenly be a big queer rainbow retelling of Sunny. It's like, I just want to be Dot, like in just a regular version of Sunny Park with George. It doesn't have to have, big pink and blue stripes all over it in order for me to be present. In my everyday life, if I go to the grocery store, I'm the black lady at the grocery store. I'm not, oh my God, here comes black trans Elle Morgan Lee at the grocery store. Like that's not my everyday life. It's not what I experience. So I think sort of people's assumptions that is the case can be really frustrating for me personally. I think, again, there are people who are that and who are like, if I'm there, it is now queer. I want to queer this show up. That's fantastic. But again, I think the assumption that everyone sort of wants to do that is harmful in some ways, and it doesn't give us as people, whether it be trans people, whether it be black people, whether it be people who are queer, it doesn't give us the full stretch and full shape of what it means to be a part of those groups. I am a queer trans woman. I identify as queer. That does not mean I'm a lesbian. You know, I identify as queer mostly because I like the idea that this word queer means other. This word queer means over there. I don't believe that the words that were given to us to describe sexuality were really inclusive or thinking about me when they were being made. So I don't really want to co-opt that experience. I like being queer. It gives me space to stretch. And I find that sometimes my sort of people knowing that I identify as queer can sometimes, I've actually laughed and been like, not this word that's meant to give me freedom, putting me into a box. Because I think that there's an assumption, oh, she's a queer woman, that means she's a lesbian. And it's like, no, I don't know that road. Like, I don't know that lane. I'm not a lesbian. But I am queer. And I think when people, even inclusive of queer people, when people try to just put on top of you what their definition of words are or their definition of things are, it takes away from them getting a chance to actually know you and to actually get to see who you are. You know, the more you show me who you are, the more I actually learn about how I fit into the world. So I want to be able to, like, if you use words to describe yourself, I want to know kind of like where those things come from and what that means, because that also is going to help me to open my lane and open my exposure to like the things that I might not understand. There are times when someone would have said queer to me and I would have been like, oh, you're gay or you're a lesbian. But I now know better. I now understand better. And so those are some of the things that, you know, many people confront. I do think that in musicals, voice is a big element of what a lot of trans people are sort of dealing with right now. There's sort of a lot of asking for changing of keys and sort of making things different. And I actually am, sometimes I feel like my age starts to stick out because I'm like, look, I see the arguments on both sides of that conversation. And I think that one side, I think you need to be able to understand both sides clearly to be able to make the right decisions for your production. I'm not a fan of fighting and kicking and screaming to be in rooms that have not been made ready for me to be in them. So I think, you know, sometimes there is a tendency for so many of us, and I think it's out of a space of scarcity because there's not nearly enough content or projects, or not nearly enough people who are actually being seen that fall under the trans, non-binary, gender expansive categories. There's not nearly enough representation. And so people are latching on to every possibility anything that could be possible. I think people are latching on to and sort of in many ways scolding the teams for, you know, well, we should be in that room. And it's like, well, but I gotta say, I don't know that we should be in a lot of those rooms because they're not made ready for us. And so I am not a fan of you being in that room if you're going to be hurt in that room. I'm not a fan of you being in that room if you just want to be an artist and do what is natural to you and do beautiful work. And when you get in that room, then you also have to be a warrior and a consultant. And I'm not a big fan of pushing you to be in that room if the people in that room aren't ready. You know, if I'm a white neighbor and I meet this, you know, a lovely Black friend on the street and I go, oh my God, come to my house for coffee. And, you know, this Black friend comes to my house for coffee and looks on the wall and there are pictures of KKK things everywhere. That's not a great experience. But I didn't get a chance to actually get to know you before I let you come to my home. It's like, so I want people to get a chance to really get to know us and to really get to see what it means in a bigger picture to want to have these, you know, this gender expansiveness in your company. What does that actually look like? And have you taken the steps to make that space safe for those people that you're inviting in?
That, you know, that's
a lot of blurb there.
No, that was so, there's so much there that I have thoughts and questions about. You know, it's to be completely honest and have a complete honest conversation. For me, I never want to be defined as one thing. I remember when I put music out and the local paper here wrote, gay teacher releases album, and it was me. And I was like, we've just put me into this category this big. And it's when someone comes on, no matter what their sexuality or gender or how they identify, I'm always very cautious to bring it up because I don't want to always be have to be the poster child in conversation about my sexuality and my history. And it's the same. There's a whole vast life that we all are living and doing as well. I don't want to talk to, every time I talk to you, bring up. So it's I walk, but there's also such an importance in seeing you, hearing your story, and the way that you're able to let us know and how to be and have the conversation. So it's a tightrope walk, I'm sure, that you have to walk all the time.
All the time. I mean, and it's also just a matter of how you get to know people. Like, you know, if I'm getting to know you, there are going to be things inherently about you that I learn. Sure, I'm gonna learn what race you are. I'm gonna learn what your background is. I'm gonna learn your sexual. Like, I'm gonna learn all these things about you. So if I'm chatting with you, I'm getting a lens of someone who is all of those things. And so I think some of the trouble comes in when people are like, you know, you're trans, so I want to get to know about trans people. And it's like, okay, well, but like I'm not the poster child for trans people. And the reason is I can't be, because I'm only one woman. Like, so there's no way for me to fully give you, this is what the trans lens looks like. Because also, we haven't had enough actual exposure and enough representation to have a clear picture of what that lens truly is. We have I think that piece, that puzzle is slowly always evolving and slowly coming together. But we have a long way to go before we could start making actual generalizations about trans people. There's like 15 people in the mix that we see over and over and over again. Like, that's not nearly enough to make any sort of real, theories about things. And that's inclusive of everything, of people's transitions, of the journey of being trans, of people's socioeconomic backgrounds. Like, it's just there. The understanding of what it means to be trans cannot be told to you by one human or two humans or three humans. Mm-hmm. So what we can do is, I can tell you about Elle Morgan, and I can tell you about, what she's dealing with day to day and what her life is like day to day. And that's going to, like we were saying, that's going to intersect with lots of things. The fact that she's Black, the fact that she's not 21, the fact that she's not a size 2, the fact, like, there's lots of things that are going to creep into that conversation that are going to bring nuance and color to what that human's experience is. So I want to get that from everybody that I communicate with. And like, I hope when I'm speaking to people that is sort of their interest in me, and not simply that I'm trans. Because it's like, yes, I'm trans and ... It's like the thing is, the more comfortable I am, the more I chat about lots of things that might have to do directly with being trans. But I think it's a matter of, when I'm in a space where I feel comfortable and I feel like people are listening and I feel like sharing, then things come up. I think it's people's assumption that you should, you're underrepresented, so you should want us to know all the details we can. Tell us about those surgeries. And it's like take a step back. Like, your assumption about anything is a problem to me, because you haven't given me a chance to even start to show you who I am or talk about myself. And also, I don't want to know your whole medical history when I meet you. Why would you want to know mine? It's none of your business. Like, I think those are, and to that, there are people who are, excited to share every step of their journey to everyone. And I think that's great. But again, it's the assumption that everyone is that same thing, that it's a problem. Don't assume. Assuming is not going to help you. Get to know folks.
And yes, have a conversation and learn and to build trust. Though, you can't just go in and it's the same thing.
It's like in any relationship building. Yes. Like, if I met you day one, I'm not going to be like, okay, tell me all of your deepest secrets on date number 1. Like, that's awkward.
No. Well, controversy. It absolutely is a turnoff. And I don't want to know all that about you, and I'm not sharing all of that about me.
Yeah.
No. A controversial question in this subject, if you may add your opinion. I saw you write a little bit about it, and I don't know if, so I'm just going to ask the question. Broadway's history you were very eloquent about part of this. Some shows that, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, especially the performers. What are your thoughts about the safety of the trans community when trans or cross-dressing characters on stage and the joke and the stereotype of that. What are your thoughts, and how does that impact this community and its safety and its place in the world?
I think goodness, this of course, because of this article, this has come up a couple times now recently. I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna keep talking about this or whatever. No, but
sorry, but I'm so I'd rather come and ask you than
no, it's important. I mean, I think specificity is king. I think making it very clear what the piece that you're developing is and is not is really helpful. You don't have to do anything. I am not someone who is wanting to sterilize anybody's story. You can tell your story in whatever way you want to tell your story. It ain't my business. I'm not the one writing the check. And I also don't have to buy the ticket. So for me, it's like, you can tell whatever story you want to tell. However, I do think if we are saying that we want to make forward motion and we want to progress and we want to evolve, if we're saying that we want to do, things in a more, I'm not going to say helpful, but if we want to do things in a way that can cause change, then we can't keep relying on the same sort of old things that have already been proven to be a problem. The idea of a man in a dress as a joke is also just an old joke. Like, do better. If the joke is that he has on a dress, then do better. And like, I think for me, I'm like, when I think about that trope, it's there seems to be a real like aggressive hold to using this trope, like it has to be present every Broadway season. It has to be present. Somebody's got to have on a dress, and it's got to be in a comedy, and it's got to be, and it's like, I just don't understand what the obsession is. And I feel like the people who are persistent in holding on to this thing perhaps need to do a little bit of soul searching for themselves to go, what is it about this trope that you need to hold on so tightly to? And why are we not having more conversations? If you are obsessed with the idea of a man in a dress, then why aren't we having conversations and more pieces being built on men who are actually gender nonconforming and men who actually wear dresses? Because there are plenty of men who do wear dresses and feel fantastic and feel affirmed and they feel great and they are, somehow gender nonconforming or fluid, and we don't see nearly enough stories about them. So where are those stories? Let's see that. Like, let's talk about that. It's the fact that you feel that you need to tell this trope in the same way that it keeps being told, that like, it's just do better. I mean, I think that it's old, and like, yes, people will always laugh, but you know what? Would it make a difference I think of it this way. Would it make a difference to you if you have a gender expansive or non-binary or trans child or brother or sister or sibling who, when they sit and watch your project and have a theater of people laughing at this trope, and they suddenly feel really uncomfortable and they feel really triggered, or they feel very laughed at, or they feel mocked. If that person was close to you and felt that way, no matter what somebody else told you, if that person who you love and care about felt hurt by what you put in front of them, would you still feel okay about it? And if you can sleep at night with that, amazing. But that's something that I would wonder. And like, on top of that, if you are telling a story that includes this sort of gender expansiveness in whatever way, then my first thought is also going to be, I'm going to look at the creative team to see who's there. Because look, if there are people on the creative team who reflect the experience of gender expansive people in some way, and if they're being heard in the process of the bones being built, the thing is going to be built differently. Like it would be made clear what this thing is not, what it is, and like why we need to use this trope in the storytelling. I think this is really like, look, this is about good direction. This is about good dramaturgy. This is about like if we are all out here trying to be great artists, that's what being a great artist looks like. actually like making work that we can stand behind and support, making work that we can go, well, you know what, this piece is about a man in a dress, and these are the reasons, and this is what we're addressing with this piece. These are the reasons why this man needed to be in a dress in this moment. The audience finds that funny, they're laughing, and we are dealing with that in how this piece is being worked. We are actually tackling that. There are moments where I would love to direct a piece that has a man in a dress, specifically so that I can show by example what it looks like to factor in society's outlook on what this trope is and how to actually turn it on its head. Because I think if there's this situation where we have lots of cis people making statements like, this piece turns the trope on its head, or this piece, you know, it does this work, well, it turns the trope on its head. You don't get to decide what turning the trope on its head looks like, because you're not the one whose life is actually being endangered by that trope. Cis people do not get to decide what, in the same way that many people would argue that, you know, a straight person cannot decide what is homophobic. A cis person cannot decide what is transphobic, because you don't actually feel the sting in the same way. So in that case, it's you as a cis person actually don't, it's not your job or ability, quite frankly, to determine what turns the man on a dress trope on its head, because you don't feel the sting.
I agree. And one of the reasons why I started the show and left a previous show where there was a co-host who didn't agree with my view is because I see the world in a very specific, privileged way. I'm a cisgender man. I'm white. The queerness comes secondary, because when you see me on the street, I'm a white man. How am I supposed to tell your story and tell you how to feel and think I'm writing what your words would be, and then go around politically or in society and tell you how you should act in the world that I've never experienced?
Yeah.
That's why art is so important, because it's a form of me to sit and watch it on a stage or on a screen.
Yeah. And look, people like, again, you can tell whatever story you want to tell. But also, if I am asked my opinion about it, and I feel comfortable in that space sharing that opinion, then I'm going to give my opinion. It's one of those things for me, like this article that came out, it was really, like, admittedly, it was a little frightening to even talk candidly about it, because like the reality is look, I'm an actress. You know, actresses are not supposed to, you know, have opinions on the way that work is being created, and actresses are not supposed to. And we are still in very much a world where there's a boys' club, and this boys' club dominates a lot of what we see. The reality is I said a long time ago, my mission has always been to be the woman that I needed to see. She needed a hero, so that's what she became. And so for me, there's no way that I could just sit quietly when given an opportunity to have a conversation about something that affects many people I know and love and care about, and would affect, you know, the person who I hope is following me, the person who I do what I do for. It's like I want to make sure that human, or those humans, or whoever they are, I want to make sure that, like, that they can say, you know what, she spoke up, and I know she was scared to do it, but she spoke up because no one else was in the room too, and because no one else did. And so, and she's also, you know, actively trying to create space and to be a part of things and organizations and people who are making space. So like I'm dabbling in some direction. I dabble a little bit in writing. There are things that I am actively sort of trying to do my part in, not just, talking about this idea of what rooms could be. I'm trying to be a part of building those rooms and trying to be a part of actually creating work that can speak to the experiences that I have had or am having or have had in the past that I think there could be improvement with. Because I think we can sit around complaining all day, or we could be proactive and try to do our part in making something a little better. And I can't take it on alone. I can't suddenly make the perfect room, but I can help to pitch in to help this room be a little better than the one that I was in before.
Well, you're starting. I mean, next month in October, you're directing a series of monologues. If I'm correct, is that the case? Would you like to tell us a little bit about it? What's your intention, and what is this going to be like?
Sure. So this is a brand new festival called Breaking the Binary Festival. Oh, great! Look at that. And it was. I was asked to come on to direct the sort of final evening in the piece. So basically what happens is over the course of that week, I believe starting October the 10th, there's going to be a piece each night, sort of a brand new play written by someone who falls under the umbrella of trans or non-binary or gender expansive in some way or two-spirited. Like there's different identities. And each of the plays will be, I believe, a reading of the play. The whole team will be, it's a trans director, it's a trans dramaturg, like the whole thing is put together by trans people or people that fall somewhere under the umbrella. And so the last evening of the festival is going to be a sort of compilation of monologues that were commissioned specifically for this festival. And I was asked to come on to direct that piece. So what we did was, speak to these writers. We gave them a prompt. They submitted sort of a first draft of a monologue. We just got their final drafts of the monologues in on Friday and Saturday. And actually, I have a meeting later tonight to sort of chat through the next steps. So we're going to start looking into casting and sort of what that's going to look like for the evening. But there's 15 monologues and sort of how that looks to piece together an evening of those monologues. And it's going to be great because also those pieces will all be then published and put out into the universe for people to be able to find these pieces that were written by trans folks. Sort of many of the pieces are very specifically trans. And what I love is that you have a nice mixture of pieces that are very like, I don't want to say like waving a flag trans, but there are some pieces that are very like, oh, this is obviously a person who is trans and has trans experiences. And then there are some monologues in the mix that are written for a trans person, but you see how very, how much anyone can relate to the story. How much anyone, there's one in particular, about a woman who is of a certain age. And she's like, I never really expected to be this age. So I don't even know what this looks like. And here I am about to turn it. And oh God. And all these people are younger around me, like making all this new language and new ideas. And I'm sitting here thinking I'm so much older than I thought I was going to ever be. And like, that's the kind of thing that I think so many people are able to relate to. And so, yeah, I'm excited to jump in. I'm excited to sort of get a gist of who is going to be doing these monologues, to start casting. And it's going to be a great night. I think if nothing else, people who come in to see the festival will be able to hear some new voices. They will be able to perhaps connect to something that they didn't expect to connect to.
It's going to be wonderful. If you want to get tickets, you could register. You register, they're going to send you an email. I did already because I was like, I need to go. www.btb-nyc.com. You could register and get your tickets. So before, I've already kept you so long. Thank you for being so kind and generous with your time. To talk about just a little bit about the journey of Strange Loop and what it has meant to you to be a part of. Did you truly get this part or start the conversation through a Facebook message? Is that how this first came to you?
Absolutely. It seems to me some of the biggest projects I've gotten to work on so far, I've gotten through DMs. I got another one today. It's very interesting because this DM culture. But yeah, I got a message on Facebook from Michael saying I got your name from someone. Another one. It's the same message that seems to keep happening. I got your name from someone, and here's some examples of my material, and I'm curious to know if you would be interested in doing the reading of this project I'm working on. So I checked out his material. It was very raw. The language was very raw. And I was like, well, this is not types of words or things that I'm used to saying in musical theater. But I do really respect his bluntness to say things that people don't typically say publicly. I thought there was something really captivating about that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm on board. Let's see what this is about. And so I jumped in, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. I remember going to see it the first time and not knowing anything about it and going by myself. I had done a show with someone that was in the show, and I went to see the show, and at one point I was like, I've never experienced the conversation that happens in this musical in such a public forum before. I've heard it from friends. I have had experiences with some of the terminology or life in a queer life that is on stage. I've never seen and I obviously don't know the full story of the lead character and his thoughts, but but I watched it and was floored. Then I went back, saw the Broadway production, and like I told you, brought my partner, and again, floored. What I find fascinating, if I may so, watching it, is that sometimes there's an audience there that has they're not queer, they're not tourists of color that are there to see that, you have people that have, and this show and the success of the show has opened the door that theater fans and art fans and people from all over are coming to see the show. They're seeing a culture and an experience they have no idea existed before. And at the end of the show, without giving the show away, this gospel number and what's going on, people are looking around at each other. They for permission to laugh, permission to clap, permission to cheer, permission to boo. It is a fascinating, and you as a group, you are all on stage that whole entire time. You are one of the hardest working casts that are in New York City right now. You guys carry this show and these words, and it's deep. While I watched it as an artist, I watched it and thought, I'm exhausted because that's a lot of emotional life throughout the whole thing. There's no this is the nice little take it easy moment. You're hitting things right head on the whole time.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think people don't actually understand the demand of the show. I think people often, I'm one of those dorks that sometimes reads the theater blogs, and I'm always very curious of what people have to say about things. Because I like to see what people take away. I like to see sort of how things are, what sticks with people, what sticks with audiences. And that's just, as an artist in general, I'm very curious of what the intention is as opposed to what is being taken, what's truly being taken away from the piece. And I think it's interesting because there are people who inherently, because Usher is in the center, Usher is the nucleus. So inherently you understand that Usher's ride is crazy. It's crazy. It's asking a lot of the actor. And I think it's asking things of the actor that I don't know that there are many parts that ask. And depending on who that actor is and sort of what their intersections are and how they live and what their actual feelings as a human are, putting on that skin is really a lot. But I do think that people understand when watching the show that is a lot. What I don't think that they clearly take away is that the 6 humans who are around this person are also putting on a skin and taking quite a ride through the show. I think that it's interesting because you see versions of people's ideas of other people that could possibly, you see people building oh, well, this could be a cast of the show or this could be a cast of the show. It's interesting because I see that sometimes and go, interesting, you have no idea what that track is actually doing. You have no idea what that track needs to sing to do that track. And this is not a show where the voice parts are being shifted around and moved. It's a show where you have a track. And the track sings this, and if you can't sing this, then you probably can't sing the track. And so Thought One, for example, my track is a bitch to sing. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. It's asking some crazy stuff, and it's not it's not a situation where like there's a lot of like gentle building into, or like I'm going to lead you into this. It's like, no, here's an E, and now you're singing a C and a D and an E, and then here's an F at the top. Like it's not it's not written in a way that like, it's not written in the way that I think, like, for instance, there have been some people's names in these blurbs who have been like, oh, well, this person could do that track, or this person. And I'm like, I love that person, but they can't sing it. Like never, like in their dreams could they sing that. Like, and it's not that what I'm doing is just so, drastic, but it's like understanding, like, I don't think people really understand sort of what each individual track's ask is. The basses in this show are truly singing bass, like bass. They're singing low E's. Like, it's like one of those things where like, and it's not a show where you can be like, well, you just change the key. It's like when we are all singing together, the chord is what the chord is. Yeah. And each of those voices has been thought about sort of where they fall in that chord. Things have been, over the course of the progression of the show, there have been some songs where people's voice parts changed, where they put this line, this thought's now going to sing this line, and this thought is now going to sing this line. That's happened a couple times because I think they were listening and going, okay, so this person's instrument does this, and they're not getting a chance really to have to lock into that. And this person's instrument really like rings in a rich way here. So let's like shift what that sounds like. And it changes the shape of the sound. And so it's one of those shows where like its tracks are built. And so people don't actually understand sort of what the tracks actually ask each of us to do. And each of those 6 tracks is its own roller coaster, is its own sort of, not just on the page vocally, but like we each have a lot of this happening throughout the show. And there are moments, I think, for each track where they get to finally go, I can breathe for a second. Sure. But then you jump right back into that big number at the end where now all of us are full-throated shouting and screaming in this moment. Like, so it's like there's no actual, most musicals, you do your number, you do your thing, you leave stage, you have a moment to breathe, pat yourself down, check your makeup, costume change, have a little water, perhaps check Amazon really quickly, listen to a line, and run back on stage. Not in this show. That ain't how it works. So I think that like the 7 humans, it's interesting because I love that the understudies in the show, the understudies who cover Usher specifically, they were like, Usher is a beast. Everybody knows that. But it's always interesting hearing them talk about the thoughts, because they're like, Usher is a beast, but Usher gets to do this, plant, and then push forward. One of the things that makes Usher difficult is that you don't really get any offstage time. Like right. There is not like you're on stage and like they have to build in little moments here and there to like be able to get a quick sip to do, because you're just on stage the whole time. The thoughts, however, it's a roller coaster because a lot of the craziness is there's a backstage show happening as well. All of the changing, all the throwing out things, running around, running back from there, and then you run on stage, do the thing, and then beeline off to change into the next thing, go downstairs and ride the elevator up and go upstairs and breathe. Like it becomes a whole nother show. It's a whole nother show. So I think it's one of those shows where like you said, it's like everyone is really doing a lot. And then on top of all of that, on top of the ask as the actor, in this cast that is all Black, we are often looking out at audiences that do not look like us and having to tell this particular story to those audiences who might have no idea what we're talking about and who might not know how to respond and who are very quiet. And in particular, when there are audiences that I think typically might be more touristy audiences, they're listening so closely that they're not really able to respond right away to things. So it becomes very quiet. And in the audience, in this show, when the audience is completely quiet and we're having to do it with little response, it's really uncomfortable. Like it's an awkward show to do with no response coming back at us. So, and you know that people are listening and they are trying to process what they're hearing, but it's that then adds another layer of work on top of us. It's that you're on stage doing this show that's already stressful, and then you're doing it for an audience that doesn't really understand where you're coming from at all, maybe. And they're finding their ways in to find things, but it's asking a lot of the cast, and in ways that I don't think many shows do, because it is something that wouldn't typically be on Broadway. And so it's like when we want new work and when we ask for new experiences, this is a part of that factoring in. We also have to then be factoring in, how do we make sure that these spaces and the people who are doing these, who are taking these experiences on their back 8 shows a week, how do we make sure that those people are taken care of? How do we make sure that those people are, you know, really well compensated, be it financially or be it energy or be it spiritual? Like how are we as an industry, how are we as a production team, how are we as a piece feeding those humans who are experiencing this 8 shows a week? Because there's no way for anyone who is not on that stage with us to understand exactly what we're being asked to do. And I think that, like, as actors, it can be tricky, because when you have a response to the thing, you know, people immediately take like, oh, well, wait, but we're doing this, it's like, no. When one is sharing what their experience is with you, listen. Just listen. We all as a people can be better at just listening.
Guilty. I absolutely. It is so true to just be able to hear and what you need and your experience is such a powerful thing. One day down the road, when history books are written, when we're not talking about movies that were made into musicals that are on Broadway and rehashing the same thing over and over again, you know, as theater goes on and seasons go on, I know that the work that you guys have done, that you all have done, the work that you all have done, and see, I'm sorry that guy. There's such language in.
I don't even care about that.
No, I know, but I just want to.
It's funny because you do that, and I'm someone who's sitting here going, "Oh, he's so cute." Like he keeps trying to correct this. I don't care. I'm not a guy.
You, thank you, but
I don't care.
Intentions are my
the awareness is good. I am a woman that's like, I know that people say you guys. I say it too. Like, we can all do better.
I appreciate that. We're going to look back and see that this moment, this grand experiment of the show and its success is hopefully going to change. You know, I had a lot of thoughts, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of Broadway performers through the pandemic about, we came out of the pandemic, we came out of this movement, we were going to create a season that was more encompassing of all different voices. And then they threw all of these plays and shows out there when theater was closed. And there was this idea like, well, we tried and it didn't work. Your shows are all at 40% and they closed. And let's go back to the way things were and this mentality. And I think it's so important for a show like your show to have come out, win awards, win an audience, and gain an audience when people have said, no, people aren't going to come. Well, you proved them wrong. Proved them wrong.
And even in that show, there are, you know, this is the thing I think is great about A Strange Loop. Like, it's a good example of a raw story being told. It's a story that is very raw being told, and inside of that rawness lives so many more complicated conversations. You know, look, being a Black woman inside of this story can be very challenging, can be very difficult, to be honest with you. And I think I understand the 360. I can see the 360. So I understand why sort of feelings around sort of Black families and Black women and Black people in general are, I can understand the reason that Usher feels oppressed by these sort of structures. And so as a result, sort of has rage towards so many people. However, being a Black woman inside of the piece is hard, because I have to 8 shows a week watch this human sort of spew outrage and spew out all these things and sort of not really fully deal with it. And not fully like ever, you know, the piece is not tied with a bow at the end where we really come to reconcile with all this and we really like heal and we learn. That's not what this piece is. And so as a human, as a Black woman inside of it, it can be very difficult. And what I say about that, I say that to say there are more conversations that can be had as a result of this show. There are conversations about the relationships between Black men, cis men, period. But like, well, you know, I put it this way: there are conversations that can be had about Black masculinity and how it reflects on the queer and gay communities. I think there can be conversations about Black women and how that relates to a Black gay man's experience. There can be conversations of, you know, I think there's a big conversation in the show of what it means to be gay as opposed to what it means to be queer. I think that like the word queer is used in this show in a way that could be really expanded on, and you know, if I were directing a production of the show, the idea of this being a queer piece would feel more lived in and more expansive in ways that it is currently not. I think it doesn't take away from what that production is. I think what it actually shows you is that the piece itself is, as Michael has always said, it breathes. It has like, it can constantly be evolving. And I think that when you put different voices sort of in the position to guide the lens of the show, you will see different versions of the show itself. And so like as a director, I would love to get my hands on the show one day, because I think that like there's a lot of stuff underneath, the show, and that are truly a part of the experience of being Black and queer that have not really been looked at to the degree that they could be in this production. And that's something that you learn because I've been doing the show now 8 shows a week.
Right.
And so I have I'm not just an actress, so I can't do the same show 8 shows a week without having lots of ideas and lots of things that I think would be going. It's just not how I'm cut. So I have to either express them or let them out in some way because that's just how my mind works.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think that there's a lot more conversations to have, and I hope that A Strange Loop can help usher in more opportunities for stories that would not be typically seen on Broadway, to get their chance and to get their moment. And like, you know, let's not forget those shows that started out that pandemic, you know, period. Let's not forget those shows where right after pandemic, they threw these plays on Broadway. Let's not forget, you know, Thoughts of a Colored Man, people could say lots of things about it. One of the things I thought was particularly special is that this is a voice that we almost never hear on Broadway. And so rather than us going into this whole like, well, this is what it's supposed to be mindset, it ain't supposed to be anything. The thing starts with someone saying like, these are the thoughts of a colored man. These are his thoughts. Who are you to tell him what his thoughts are supposed to be? Mm-hmm. Who are you to tell him what he's supposed to say? All you're doing since you bought a ticket is saying, I want to hear what you have to say. So if I am a ticket buyer, if I am a person who is sitting in this theater and my first thought is, well, it should be this, it's supposed to be this, then I'm not actually giving this colored man a chance to share his thoughts. And so that's one of the things I feel like I have to have hope that we will do better, and that we will continue trying to, you know, get to whatever that, you know, next step actually is. Because I think we've seen hints of what it could be throughout the season. But it's going to take more people being willing to put what they already know aside and actually taking a moment to listen. Like, look, the next step of what Broadway can be, none of us know because none of us have seen it yet. So meaning we're all going to have to somehow step into navigating a little bit in the dark to get there. And if we keep relying on the same things we've always been relying on, and you keep just making the same decisions that you've always made, then we're never going to get there. Mm-hmm. So it becomes, do you actually want to get there, or are you just giving us lip service?
And that is what's going to be fascinating. That's the question. That's what's going to be fascinating to see. Well, I know for a fact that there's a lot more L. Morgan Lee directing, writing, acting, singing, and all of it that's, you know, coming. I was, look, I listen to your voice. I listen to the Strange Loop cast album often. I listen to the Rainbow Lullaby album. It's beautiful. I was over at Yaz's apartment because we're doing some Christmas music, and he was like, you know, L. Morgan Lee recorded here, and I was like, she did right here with your baby. He's like, my baby was this big, and you're such a talented and and beautiful performer, and to see you on stage living these characters and living these moments and hearing your voice is really wonderful to see. And then to hear you talk, I can only imagine the amazing art that you're going to create and are creating. I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited to see what you whip up and share with us all. Go, if you haven't seen Strange Loop, go see Strange Loop. Where have you been? What are you waiting for? And keep posted. You know, go to Elle Morgan Lee, go to her website, keep posted, go follow her on Instagram, and wait till you see what next things. Television's coming. That childhood dream is coming. You know what I've learned and I've loved, and if I could just take your minute for 1 minute, when you said in the beginning that you loved, you studied musical theater, and we'll end on this, and you loved those movie musicals as a kid. I think a lot of times I've had conversations with a lot of white people and or straight people who like art, and there's this attitude that the changes that are being made to art, or the representation or the diversity that's being shown in art or being pushed for, is because they don't like the art form. And when I talk to people, it's like, nobody hates theater, nobody hates musicals, nobody hates television and movies. The love for it, they want it to survive and live in a world where everyone can be seen. Can you just expand on that to end? Because I think that a lot of people watching say, these people want to change my Broadway and they want to get rid of it and they want to get rid of my musical and we want to get... Can you please explain how they both can live in the same place?
Oh my God. I mean, I swear by things are never as simple as they may look. I mean, I think that things can be more than one thing always. I think that, look, again, there are people who do want to tear down your Broadway. And there are people who do want to get rid of your TV and your movies. But again, this assumption, back to this assumption that everyone feels that way is not helpful. Look, I mean, I fell in love with movie musicals as a little kid. And like, to me, like if I were to be like, if I was able to do everything I want to do and could have any dream or wish I want, which I believe in manifesting, and so these things will happen. But like, if I could have anything, what I would be doing is I would be acting in movie musicals. I would be acting on TV. I'd be acting in plays on Broadway, and I'd be directing musicals on Broadway. Because the ask of the human that's doing them is very different. And, signing up for a full year of 8 shows a week in a musical is like crazy. It is. It's crazy. I mean, it is the Olympics for a year. The Olympics, which people say Broadway is the Olympics, but the Olympics have an end date and then the body gets a chance to sort of restore and heal and recover. Broadway doesn't get that. So you're just doing it which is no end date. To me, that ain't great to the body when you're not 21. So I'd love to be a part of building that room and allowing those 21-year-olds to do their thing. And in the meantime, I can do it in a studio and then do the acting on screen, and then I'm done. And it's lit. It's there for the whole world. But I think you can look. There are a lot of musicals that are, people have deemed them problematic. Look at Carousel. People have endless conversations about how problematic Carousel or Guys and Dolls or these other pieces can be. Carousel is one of my favorite shows. Guys and Dolls is a really fun show to me. There are ways that these pieces can be presented and built that show awareness to the world that we live in without stripping them of the spirit that, is nostalgic for us all. You can do Guys and Dolls in a way that, addresses some of the concerns. Like, the thing is, I think there's a fear of this idea of woke culture that people seem to be running away from. And I think a lot of that is, again, it's the few people who are very loud. It's the few people who are very, very loud. And often I find that the loudest voices are not always the ones who are the most knowledgeable. And that doesn't mean that that's always the case, but I do think that there is something to be said about the people who feel the need to make the most noise everywhere are not always the ones who are able to communicate that noise in the right way, or in a way, not in the right way, but in a way that is, in a way that can and will be heard by more people. I think that like we need those loud voices. We need the people who are not afraid to like go out and carry torches and scream and shout. We need those people, if nothing else, to draw awareness that there is a bigger issue that needs to be discussed. And then we also need the people who are able to communicate in a way that is a bit more personal and a bit more one-on-one, and who will be heard in different rooms. We need all those pieces together to actually do the things that we say we want to do. So it's like, you know, this fear of woke culture comes out of a fear of people in these people's minds. I'm going to say, I would paraphrase as probably people being obnoxious, shouting things at them. I don't necessarily feel that way, but I think that the people who would complain about woke culture are probably thinking in that way. You can still have your problematic storytelling. Those things aren't going anywhere. There's always going to be plenty of problematic storytelling happening. I can guarantee you that one or two new shows that pop up are still going to be the minority in a slew of probably really problematic stories. So you will always have your thing. You know, this idea that all of a sudden, you know, I saw someone speaking recently and they were like, there's just so many trans people coming now. And I was like, are there? Because I can tell you, when I look around, I see a handful, and that handful are in a limited number of projects that are mostly on networks and things that like people don't necessarily even realize that they're there. So like you will still get your big name people that you always see. You will see, if you are a cis white man, there is always going to be opportunity for you. Like you will always be seen. So it's this idea of, if you are a cis person, there will always be representation of who you are. But it's like, but there's, I think the idea that we might see a new face here or there, it really should not be as frightening as it is, because best believe that person is also facing all kinds of new obstacles in those rooms. You know, someone told me, you know, this word like trailblazer keeps being thrown around, which I am, you know, mortified about, quite frankly, because what I think is like, while it is a cool idea and it's a word that as a kid, if you're like, oh my God, this person was a trailblazer, I think of these like greats in history and I'm like, oh my God, like they were so like inspiring and moving. They did all the things you want people to do. And it's interesting because then when you are called a trailblazer, immediately I go, I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other. Like I literally am just trying to like walk the straight and narrow on my own. Like I can't, I don't want you to like all walk behind me because I'm walking in the dark. Like I'm navigating in the dark. These are spaces that many of us have not gotten to be. And so I'm just trying to make sure that I can do whatever little part I can in these spaces so it's a little bit easier for whoever is behind me. But like this idea of trailblazing, it's like what someone told me, you don't break a glass ceiling without getting cut. And it's something that I don't think that we like ever think about. It's like people who are the first or the, you know, first or the second or the third, it's like there probably are cuts. They've probably had to deal with things to get to those spaces. When someone goes, you know, you're the first trans person to be nominated for an acting Tony, what does that feel like? And it's like, it's so many feelings that I don't know that I could actually put it into words. But what I do know is that I have lots of scars. What I do know is that I have lots of things that I've experienced that I don't even view as scars until someone opens my eyes and goes, well, who was taking care of you? Who was protecting you? Who was, and I'm like, oh wait, I didn't ask for that. I didn't even know that I needed to ask for that. I didn't know that I was allowed to ask for that. I was just used to putting my flashlight on and pushing forward because that's what I thought I had to do. So I think this probably has nothing to do, well, a little bit to do with what I asked, but I just want us to do a better job at listening to each other. And I want us to do a better job as people of implementing what care looks like into the rooms that we're creating. Because I think when the people in the room feel appreciated and when the people in the room feel like you want to hear them and you value whatever they're doing in the room because you've invited them, so you want them there. When those people feel seen and feel heard and feel appreciated and cared for, the work is better. the experience is better. We're artists. We're not supposed to be sitting around. We're not supposed to be sitting around bitching. We're supposed to be out here like holding a mirror up to reality and holding a mirror up to society. Yes. We are made to. That's what we do. We hold a mirror up to society. Like we're given a chance to play, make believe. So when those spaces are turned into a place where we can't do that in a free way, it's not good.
Yes. Well, I would feel pressure too, but you are a trailblazer, and there's a whole entire giant line of people who are going to come because of you and that flashlight. Just like a lot of other people, they took one step in front of another and built some kind of legacy. That's what you're going to do as well. And there's going to be a lot of beautiful art and humanity that we're going to see because of the work and the sacrifices that you have made to share your art and your light with us. So I'm internally grateful, and thank you so much for you're so generous with your time and your conversation. And it's important conversation, and I'm really honored to have this medium that you would come on and talk to us about it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Oh, please. My pleasure. My show is yours. Anytime. Direct, write, star, come and tell us.
Now I'm the host. Welcome to
Morgan Lee show. I'm ready for it. How great is that? I changed. Listen, we're here. I wrestled with telling you all, firstly, thank you for your comments. Thank you for watching this. I think she was interesting and informative as well. She's authentic. She's kind and open with us, learned a lot. I learned a lot talking with her too. It's funny, Christina and I talked about A Strange Loop. I recommended that show when she was in New York, and it was so funny that we got to talk about it recently this week. L. Morgan Lee is a force. She taught us so much. I really enjoy her. As you can see, it was a real conversation. I made mistakes. Yes, Sam texted me and just told me, like, I like her. Sam texted to give me that information because I wanted it to be real. When I say, hey, you guys, and it's just an instinctual, or what am I supposed to call you? Or what do you think about these shows? Like Some Like It Hot, that's a drag show. Is this funny? Are we supposed to like this? You know, everyone has a different opinion. Everyone handles it differently. But I was really excited to talk to her, and she definitely is a trailblazer. The first performer that identifies as trans to be nominated for a Tony Award is pretty awesome. So thank you so much to L. Morgan Lee. I really appreciated you being a part of the show. Next week on the Roundtable, we have a special conversation as our Roundtable talk with John McDaniels, Christine Popson to talk to me, and Angela Grove. So Christine will be on, and John McDaniels will be on, and then Angela Grove will be here, and she's on a new show that's on Hulu at HBO Max, and she's wonderful and a Broadway star, and so much more. And then next Thursday, our show next Thursday is going to be my favorite singers for my birthday, and I'll tell you more about it later in the week. But it's a really great show we have coming up for you for sure. So listen. I wrestled with telling you this. I want to dedicate this show to my wonderful, sweet Uncle Sal. I lost my Uncle Sal this morning, so my life and day has been a little bit crazy. So I wanted to say thank you to all the love for everyone who has been in my life and family. Big shout out to my aunt and my cousins. I want to say this was for him, and I want to say thank you everyone for watching and enjoying while we've been dealing with my whole little family situation here. No woohoo is for me. No condolences are necessary, but that's what we've been dealing with today. So thank you for being patient with me as I've been a little bit out of my brain and out of my normal step. I hope to see you all on Saturday. The show will go on and it'll be a lot of fun. So I want to say thank you to everybody who is going to be traveling from near and far on Saturday night. Come see the show. Go to robertbannon.com. It's on Saturday night. We're going to celebrate life. It's precious. It's sweet. We'll have this moment together. And it's not lost on me that it is something really special to be able to share a moment with my friends and family and celebrate in music together. So I look forward to seeing you on Saturday night. And, you know, it really put things in perspective for me. I was talking a couple of weeks about how many people are going to come. Is it going to be 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 sold out, whatever? And the reality of it is that if there's one person and we could just spend some time together and spread some joy and have a good time together, then it did my job. That's all that matters, right? I am definitely going to get some rest because I'm exhausted. I will see you on Saturday. And I thank you. You know, the best is always yet to come. From me to you, thank you. God bless you for spending time with me. I wish you a lot of joy, peace, and happiness this week. And I look forward to seeing you. Special Roundtable talk tomorrow. And and more shows again next week. Thank you, friends, for making today and always so special. It's an honor to be here with you. See you on Saturday. Join me. Bye, everyone.